Hey there, listeners. Time for a chat. Before we dive back into our latest episode, I've got something that's a little less scary, but just as important to share. Have you ever felt a chill down your spine? Not from fear, but from seeing your health insurance bill? Or the bewilderment akin to reading a witch's spell when trying to understand your coverage? If you're nodding your head, then let me introduce you to Indie Pop. Indie Pop isn't just another player in the healthcare game. They're the game changers for the independent souls out there, the freelancers, the self-employed artists, and everyone in between who makes up a whopping 1/3 of our workforce. With over 60 million people facing the frightening challenge of finding affordable, quality healthcare, Indie Pop is the righteous bee buzzing back to this hive equipped with plenty of honey. Now, let's talk about the Indie Pop difference. It's like walking into a room and switching on the light. Suddenly everything is clear. Are you sick of navigating through complex networks that change the moment you cross state lines? Or getting tangled in the web of confusing pricing and elusive coverage? Or feeling like a ghost in the system where you feel more like a number and less like an actual living and breathing human? Indie Pop says no. No more jump scares of unexpected bank-draining medical bills. This is healthcare that's not out to haunt you. Imagine an open network that empowers you with the freedom to choose your caretakers. Envision transparent pricing with set rates for major medical needs and hospitalization. And the best part? Savings that could range between 20 to 70% compared to traditional insurance carriers. But what's the catch, right? Nothing. It's simply healthcare as it should be, designed for the independent population, tailored to fit your budget and your lifestyle. And because you're a cherished part of the beehive, Indie Pop has conjured a special offer just for you. Visit info.indiepop.co/nefarious. That's info.indiepop.co/NEFARIOUS to learn more and join this revolution of care without all the BS. We will include the link in the episode notes so you can buzz over to it. Easy peasy. Indie Pop, it's healthcare that's got your back, not lurking behind it.
A Nefarious Nightmare contains themes that may be explicit or triggering for some. Specific warnings and disclaimers will be mentioned in the show notes. A Nefarious Nightmare assumes all parties that are mentioned in these cases to be innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Listener discretion is strongly advised. You can help us grow the show by leaving us a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or you can join our Patreon for lighthearted bonus content. With this, welcome to Season 6.
A quick recap. Katie Palmer was a 39-year-old mother of 2. She was a middle school science teacher who loved animals and had a smile that could warm the heart of the most callous human being. I mean, it could melt a snowman. She loved all of her kids, not just her 2 children, but also was pretty much a significant source of love for the ones that she taught as well. She truly embodied kindness, and her love was pure and honest.
One morning, April 21st, 2020, she was walking alongside a road with her husband, John Palmer, looking at a particular bird called a killdeer when she and John both were struck from behind, knocked out of their shoes, and thrown approximately 70 feet. The impact severely injured John, breaking his back, but he had the strength to immediately move to Katie's side. She was barely hanging on, and we would come to find out that the impact had ended up killing her. Today, we will talk to John Palmer and offer up some updates and some ways to actively help obtain justice in this case. I'm Amanda Cronin.
And I'm Courtney Fenner, and A Nefarious Nightmare presents No More BS, revisiting justice for Katie Palmer.
In Season 3, Episode 2, re-released He Drove Blind Down a Road, Justice for Katie Palmer. Since then, and not because of us, we do not want to take credit for this. This is purely because of her husband. We have all seen some amazing things happening. Morbid Podcast released their episode with John Palmer on the same day. Dawn Gandhi from Method and Madness released hers a few weeks later, and so many people have covered this case prior and post. This case had even been covered by Voices for Justice, Crawl Space, Mile Higher, Victimology, True Consequences, Generation Y, Missing, fellow Texan podcaster Gone Cold, a plethora of Texas news articles, and even fairly recently reached Nancy Grace. There are way too many platforms that have covered this movement to list, but if you do a quick Google search for Justice for Katie Palmer, you will come up with quite a bit. The point is that John Palmer has built quite the community in which we all share one major sentiment. Katie Palmer deserves justice.
So you're probably asking yourself, well, what's the big deal? Well, if you notice that all of these platforms have covered the same case, then it's likely that it's one that really needs attention. We grapple with the same sentiment that is shared by so many victims and survivors who are desperately needing justice and closure. The sentiment being that the justice system has failed them in the past, that there are law enforcement officials who decide to protect their own, lazy people who run an entire population with the main motivation being that of ego. And I mean, we've seen that recently with the sextortion case back in Season 5, which, a brief update, we've been trying to reach Fremont, Nebraska Senator Lynn Waltz, who, promised to protect the victims of sextortion by implementing a law surrounding it. And this same senator has ignored our many pleas for help and support, awareness, and attention, which leads us to believe that her move was to create this law simply to grant more votes for office.
So, what does Senator Lynn Waltz have to do with justice for Katie Palmer? Well, she shares a common trait with Grayson County District Attorney Brett Smith, who seems to be completely motivated by ego. She, like Brett Smith, puts on a facade as caring and compassionate until she gets the votes. She, like Brett Smith, has straight up ignored anyone who has called them out on behaviors or simply asked for help. So if you are living in a county or city with them as your elected officials, you're practically on your own. Well, until re-election. And, as you all might be aware, Brett Smith completely failed John Palmer and his children. A district attorney's primary role, in case you are not aware, is to represent the state and prosecute felony criminal cases. What happened to Katie Palmer was a criminal case, a felony, as her perpetrator, Corey Todd Foster, literally drove reckless and blind down a road, ran Katie Palmer down, and all of which resulted in her death.
Not only that, though, but this negligent and reckless act left John Palmer severely injured and, traumatically, 2 children without their mother. What doesn't kill you, though, makes you stronger, as evident to the pure tenacity that her husband has kept in obtaining justice for her. After all, John is a pure class act when it comes to his family and his late wife. He is someone who emulates compassion, and many loved ones seeking justice for those no longer with them take pages from his book. He's the kind of person that would do just about anything and everything to get the truth out there and seek closure in an ongoing plea for justice. Silence is his enemy, and truth is his closest ally.
Being a firm place in the spirit of advocacy does not come without its challenges, as John would see, because while you can't undo the act of reckless homicide, you are still fighting for what is right, what is true, and what is just. And with Corey Foster's team of his own allies trying to sweep it all under the rug and save face, looking at you, DA Brett Smith and Corporal Tariff, it's challenging but not impossible. When all of us are raising awareness, fighting for justice, and seeking answers, telling the same story, then there has to be truth in there, right? And why is it that something, dare we say, as simple as an open and shut, reckless homicide case need to be this drawn out?
Why is it that the fact that a questionably sober man ran down this 39-year-old woman, but he gets to move on while her family is still stuck without any closure? But my hands are tied, a DA might say, but the breathalyzer maybe sorta coulda possibly, I don't know, it sorta looks like a 3. Could have been a 3, even it looks like an 8. I saw a 3, so I'm gonna list it as a 3. A corporal might suggest. No, I wasn't drunk. I was tired, a reckless driver might say. How is it that we are taking these people at their word when a family is still 3.5 years after the fact surviving and fighting for answers? This serves to prove one point. Taking the easy way out most often will lead you to the most difficult, because the current DA is receiving so much backlash that it could be by some sort of twisted miracle that he's reelected in the primary in 2024. You may think you can hide things and sweep them under the rug, but you can't forever.
The argument arises often that true crime isn't political. You see negative reviews on platforms for bringing politics into this, or stop bringing politics into this and I just want the ooey gooey crime story. Some comments echo, and most often we ourselves avoid politics because frankly we don't care to get into all of that publicly. But in cases such as this, it absolutely is political. The crime perpetrated in this case is literally caused by an individual who is being protected by a political figure. Our aim with this update is to make you all aware that someone has challenged the current Grayson County District Attorney, and we can leave it all up to you guys to decide what to do with the information given in today's episode.
But we do hope, regardless of any outcome, and no matter what you do and what you choose, that the listeners of this show are those with huge hearts, common sense, and the understanding that this family needs a break. This family needs answers, and this family needs a way forward to move on and remember their beloved mother and wife in peace. With this, we'll go ahead and listen to the interview that I conducted with John, who is Katie's husband, so that you all can hear straight from him about any of the updates that you do need to know.
Tell me a bit about Katie. Tell me where she was born. Tell me her birthday, and just tell me about her life.
Katie was born here in Denison, Texas, May 3rd, 1981. Her mom lived here in Denison. Her dad lived in Caney, Oklahoma. So she spent time between Denison and Caney. Grew up with a love for the outdoors, very family-centric. Her mom was her best friend. They were together just about every single day. She loved her dad, talked to her dad on the phone all the time. Her love of science brought her to Austin College, which is a college in Sherman, Texas, which is a town that's just to the south of Denison here. There at Austin College, she studied biology, had a love for science, love for learning, loved ornithology, loved the study of birds. She spent a lot of time at Hagerman Wildlife Refuge, which is here in Grayson County. Spectacular place. I could see why she loved to spend time out there. Lots of wildlife, lots of bird watching. We met in college, and it was absolutely amazing. She was a great soul, great kind soul, and we just clicked.
You and Katie just had an anniversary.
We did. On the 24th of this month. So it would have been 19 years.
Wow, 19 years.
19 years. So, we had known each other for well over 20, and I can still consider myself a very lucky man. Yeah. I found that one person. So I found my soulmate.
Can you give a brief recap on what happened with Katie?
I absolutely can. On April 21st, 2020, Katie and I left our house to go for a morning walk at approximately 7:30 a.m. We walked down our country road here in Denison, Texas. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile. We walked down the road. She had never gone walking with me before in the morning. This was the first time. We started to walk down Glenwood Drive, heading west, and there was a golf course right by us. We decided not to go walk on the golf course. The grass was a little dewy, and this was when COVID started to take form, as far as lockdowns, and so schools were essentially locked down. So she was going to have to log back in that morning and do virtual teaching with her students, and she was going to go back in and probably lay down for a little bit. So that's the reason why she didn't want to go walk on the golf course. So we went down walking on Glenwood alongside the roadway. We got to close to the end of Glenwood. She was going to show me where some killdeer were nesting. Like I said before, Katie loved birds, so anytime there was any excuse to show me birds or have me go bird watching, she absolutely jumped at it. We didn't see any of the birds, and so we decided to turn back around and go home. So we started walking back towards our house, heading east on Glenwood, walking alongside the road, and that's when our neighbor Corey Todd Foster crossed over the roadway and hit us both from behind. Hit us approximately 70 feet into that golf course. Katie ended up passing away from the injuries that she sustained, and I was sent to an ICU.
It's almost like Corey Todd Foster, Tarif Al-Khatib, and Brett Smith have kind of like formed this, for lack of a better term, like three musketeers of totally avoiding accountability, right? So would you mind just telling me about any updates regarding those three? Because, and just for everybody that's listening, real fast, Tarif Al-Khatib was the officer that was called onto the scene. Corey Foster was the man that murdered, essentially, Katie Palmer, who is John Palmer's wife. And Brett Smith was the DA for Denison, right?
So he is currently the DA now. I am very proud to announce that there is another candidate, John Kermit Hill, who has entered that race. So we are going to be supporting John Kermit Hill for Grayson County District Attorney. And so proud and so happy that a leader like John Kermit Hill decided to run for Grayson County DA.
So can you give a brief recap on how these three individuals kind of banded together and avoided accountability, right? And then any updates past that?
I mean, as far as banding together, I can definitely talk about relationships that all three have. Again, Tarif Al-Khatib was the officer that was called out on scene when Corey Foster killed Katie Palmer. Al-Khatib failed that day. Blood should have been drawn. Again, if you remember when Al-Khatib was on scene, he mentioned many times that how Corey smelled of alcohol, had a very strong presence of alcohol on his breath. There were field sobriety tests that were done. However, an hour had passed since Corey had killed Katie. Okay. Other troopers even made mention of getting blood, and Tarif Al-Khatib decided to not get Corey Foster's blood. Our district attorney, Brett Smith, even commented on that weeks after Katie was killed, stating that missteps were made and stated that Tarif Al-Khatib failed on site, did not do a very good job at all when it came to investigating Katie's death, because there were no pictures, there was no blood, and he made mention that his report was lacking as well. So instead of taking Corey Foster to the hospital for a blood test, he gave him a ride home. He loaded him up in his cruiser and gave him a ride home. We later come to find out that it appears that the Fosters and the Alcatives had a relationship that we didn't know about. There were pictures that were found on social media of both families at events together. There was one picture where Sharif Al-Khatib's wife was just about sitting in Corey Foster's lap at a party. The wives had gotten together before, coordinated makeup and clothing for this party. And then a month or so later, they were at a Christmas party together. Wives were just about arm in arm. So there was definitely a relationship there. Also, through all of this and through all the information and through all the research we've done, we found out that Brett Smith actually represented the Foster family in a DWI before he started to work at the DA's office. That was not at all communicated to us, and I believe because of that, Smith should have recused himself from this case and should have had no interaction with us on this at all. But again, that's not what happened. And then we find where there's a link between Al-Khatib and Brett Smith. They are related by marriage. So there is definitely a triangle of relationships that we found that, quite frankly, is very disturbing.
So basically, it's a massive conflict of interest or almost nepotism in some way, right?
I would say that would be right. Yes.
This happened in 2020, and you're still going through it. It's just really heartbreaking. Since then, I've noticed, since several people have put their episodes out, they've raised a ton of awareness. So can you tell me how that's been of benefit in Katie's case for justice?
Anytime that anybody shares Katie's story, anytime that a podcaster, and again, Courtney, I hate using that word. I think I told you this in person. I think of you more as an advocate, okay? So when advocates like yourself tell Katie's story, when people hear Katie's story and share it, it does raise awareness. And it raises awareness here in Grayson County. Like I stated before, John Kermit Hill is going to run for DA, and we need to raise as much awareness as possible because come March, when the primary happens, we need voters here in Grayson County to get out and vote, and we need them to vote for John Kermit Hill. We don't want this to happen to another family. We don't want Brett Smith to treat another family and a victim like myself the way that he has. And I've had victims here in Grayson County reach out about Smith, and again, very disturbing how families and victims are treated here in Grayson County. And March next year, I know that voters here in Grayson County will come out and they'll vote for accountability. And accountability will be Brett Smith being voted out of office.
So you touched up on several disturbing stories from others where they've been through something similar. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more on that? Because I kind of want to drive that point home with our listeners.
Well, there are two that I will gladly bring up. One is a case that the Dallas County District Attorney recused himself from. And are you aware of the Ricky Rush case?
No, I'm not aware. I'll definitely be looking into it.
Dallas mega pastor Ricky Rush. So there had been stories in the past about possible assault and sexual abuse from this pastor. Again, those are alleged. These accusations were brought forth by members of the pastor's own congregation. And Smith was brought in after the Dallas County District Attorney recused himself. And that resulted much like it did in our case, where Ricky Rush was no build. And the handling of this case was heavily scrutinized, so much that the president of the National District Attorneys Association stated, with regards to reports of Smith's office not actually speaking with victims at all. Okay, so again, the handling of this case was so scrutinized that the president of the National District Attorneys Association stated, I can generally tell you that it is extremely unusual for a prosecutor's office not to speak to the victim before you put a matter to a grand jury. We're talking about sexual assault, and Smith did not even speak with the victim. And I believe that when the president of your national association makes this comment, and this comment was printed in the Dallas Morning News, and this case was also covered by Vice News as well, you've got a problem. And we've got a problem here in Grayson County. There's also a case involving Roderick Tad Howard. Roderick Tad Howard is, let me start by saying that the victim was Blake McCoy. And I say was Blake McCoy because Blake McCoy was murdered by Roderick Tad Howard. And I'm going to tell you how this could have been prevented. Okay, Roderick Tad Howard in June of 2020 was arrested for sexually assaulting another man. I've read the police report, and it is horrific. This Roderick Tad Howard literally ran a man down in the street and sexually assaulted him. Roderick Tad Howard was then arrested that same day, put in jail, sat in jail for 3 months. Brett Smith refused the case. Okay, so this man who had a past was put back out on the streets here in Grayson County. 3 months later, Roderick Tad Howard commits armed robbery and then kills Blake McCoy. Had our district attorney done his job, Blake McCoy would still be alive. Roderick Tad Howard would be in prison. But that's not what happened, and because of that, a young man like Blake McCoy was murdered, lost his life.
Wow. So Brett Smith has failed y'all so much. Real fast, can you tell me how your kids are doing, how they're handling all of this?
This is not something that you get over. This is something that you get through. Kids are amazingly strong, and I really shouldn't say it's amazing that they're strong, but they are amazingly strong to have gone through what they've gone through, and just still fight for normalcy. They're going to be fighting for a long time. I'm sure you can definitely relate to this. It's hard to see somebody that you love, especially your kids, going through what mine are going through. I just know that they know that they're loved, and that we're always going to be here for them. It's going to take time, and there is no timetable that's set. We're just going to do what we've always done, and we're going to take it one day at a time. And we have this huge hole in our heart because Katie was taken from us, but we're going to get through it as a family.
You and your children have to essentially wake up every day and be reminded of that. And the fact that they have been so resilient as kids are, it's just important to highlight all of y'all.
Yeah, they are definitely victims in this. They woke up that day, April 21st, 2020, not being able to tell their mom bye. She was taken. And
it just hits hard.
It does. And it's, again, something that we will not get over. It's something that we're just going to have to continuously fight through.
Somebody had left you a comment on your Facebook.
Right. So there was a member of the Justice for Katie Palmer group page that had replied to a post that I had published. And we had gotten 100 or 200 comments. So sometimes it's, there's comments that somebody will put up there and just might not see them. This woman had posted a link that had personal information relating to Brett Smith and Tarif Al-Khatib. She just posted the link, didn't post, she didn't go out there and write it, but it was a free website where some of their personal information was made available. And so I want to say maybe a month or so later, I got an email from DPS stating that there was a comment that needed to be taken down because it lists some personal information regarding a state trooper, and that if I didn't get this done within 24, 48 hours, then they were going to press charges against me. So within about 2 hours after getting that email, when I finally saw the email, immediately went on there, located the comment, removed it, and blocked the user or the member of our group that put it on there, and I communicated with her what was going on, and just said, hey, we had gotten this from DPS, and they asked that I remove it, and I removed the comment and removed you from the group just to make sure that there wasn't going to be any consequences, and she fully understood. Now, what I didn't know is that DPS launched a year-long investigation into this woman. On this woman, launched a year-long investigation on this single mom who was putting herself through nursing school. Okay, and actually took her to trial because Tarif Al-Khatib pressed charges. So, just want to make sure that I say that again. DPS spent 1 year investigating a woman for posting a link to personal information about Brett Smith and a DPS trooper, which was online. She didn't pay any money for this. It was listed online.
So they essentially went after her for posting a public link.
And they didn't give Katie Palmer the time of day. Okay? This went to trial for 3 days. And in this trial, Tarif Al-Khatib called Justice for Katie Palmer anti-government and anti-law enforcement. We've got officers that are on this page. We've also got state representatives that are a part of this page. I have made it very clear that I believe that an overwhelming majority of law enforcement officers do their job perfectly, right? Do their job to the best of their ability. Don't give family friends that kill school teachers at 7:45 in the morning rides home. Don't make statements when somebody asks you to go check on that same school teacher's kids. Don't say things like they probably won't even come to the fucking door. Pardon my language, but that's an exact quote. That's not law enforcement, right? What Tarif did is not a true representation for law enforcement officers. I have utmost respect for law enforcement officers. And then as far as being anti-government, we have worked with the legislature here in Texas on changing laws. We've worked with the government. We're not anti-government. So statements like that were made over the 3 days, and the jury saw right through it and needed less than 1 hour to acquit this woman of the charges. And again, it's just unbelievable that the state of Texas spends 1 year prosecuting this woman for a comment, and again, will not lift a finger for Katie at all.
Just like you said, they're not gonna even lift a finger to help you guys out regarding the murder of Katie Palmer, an innocent woman who was just going on a walk with her husband one day to go see some killdeer. But they're gonna go after somebody for posting a comment for a year? That's ridiculous.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. That just goes to show you their list of priorities. And
yeah, and there's no excuse for it. I think that the leadership in DPS is horribly misguided on principles. Absolutely. And it's a shame that those few that have power over this, and especially the one that had power over the investigation that day, they continually fail and just absolutely tarnish reputation of law enforcement. It is a damn shame. Tarif failed at doing his job. April 21st, 2020, failed. And then, we had other officers that day. There's two Denison police officers, one that was with me at the hospital that was just outstanding. Great man. There were a bunch of COVID restrictions at that time, but he made sure that every single family member that came up there, including my kids, had no issues getting up. And then the resource officer at Katie's school obviously was, I believe, on patrol doing something for Denison PD since the schools were closed down. And he had heard what happened and broke off what he was doing to come here to make sure that our kids were being taken care of. That's law enforcement. That right there to a T is law enforcement. And it's crazy. We had both ends of the spectrum that day. That day, we had one officer who just appeared not to give a damn at all. And then we had two that were just the epitome of selfless service.
They're still working. Are they still?
I know that the resource officer at Katie's school still is, and great man, great community member, and just an outstanding individual. I thought something that was amazing. Brett Smith went to every, I believe, high school and middle school in this county, giving a presentation on fentanyl, which was needed. And he came to Denison ISD. I spoke with the district and I got, voiced my concerns over this. And especially he was going to Scott Middle School where Katie taught. And then he was going to where my son was at. And then he was going to the high school where my daughter was at. I voiced my concerns with the district. From what I was told, they spoke with the DA's office about it, and Smith declined to have somebody else give that presentation. So I pulled my son out of the middle school, and then my daughter out of the high school that day when Brett was supposed to be there giving a presentation. And I thought it was amazing because the teachers at Katie's school, there was a T-shirt that was made. It was Katie's name, Katie Palmer, but it was in the, it looked like the periodic table, the K and then the A, because she was a science teacher. So a lot of them wore that shirt that day. And then at the high school, one of Katie's cousins was a senior there, and he got a lot of the students to wear the same shirt that we got reprinted, and he wanted to get those, wanted to pass those out. We had over 100 students wearing the Katie Palmer t-shirts when Brett addressed the student body at the high school. Again, that just goes to show you how much support Katie still has, and it's amazing.
That is a peaceful protest, too.
Absolutely, and it's very proud. She touched a lot of people. Those teachers that she taught with at Scott Middle School, and those students that were at the high school that she had taught in her science classes, and just amazing. What a beautiful show of support, and just I'm proud. Katie made an impact. She absolutely did, and she meant a lot to her students, and they showed up for her. There's nothing that we can do to bring her back, but what we can do is, again, make sure that Brett Smith is not in a position to negatively impact another family, like he's done with us, like he's done with Blake McCoy and his family, and like he's done with the alleged victims of Ricky Rush.
Are there any current events that you would like to highlight as far as like media that's going to be coming up that everybody should be keeping their ears out for, etc.? Anything that you want to highlight?
So we've got the Katie Palmer Project, and we're starting on our fourth season. And so what the Katie Palmer Project is a friend of mine that I went to high school with, Dustin Bortsfield, who is a deputy fire marshal over in Grapevine, had reached out to me Christmas after Katie died and said that he wanted to put Christmas lights on our house. That's what he does. And apparently there's a lot of firefighters that do this in their off time. When they're not out saving lives, there are a good number of them that will, in their spare time, put up Christmas lights on houses. He told me this is what he does, and he just said that he would like to do it for us. And I thought that was an extremely kind gesture. So absolutely. I said, man, I really appreciate it. And I want to say a couple days later, he called me back and said, hey, I not only want to do this for you, but I want to do this for other families that have suffered a hardship or a loss over the past year. And I want to do it in Katie's name.
That's awesome.
And man, how beautiful is that? I thought, man, that's amazing. Her personality was bright. Her laugh was infectious. And it just made sense when it came to Christmas lights that we just wanted to keep Katie's light shining bright.
Absolutely. I love that.
And so we've done this will be our fourth season. And it's spread. We actually did some in near Boston. We've done them in Texas. We've done them in Oklahoma. I mean, from Oklahoma City all the way down to near Houston. So Katie's light has been spread far, and it's shining bright. And so right now we are taking nominations. If you get on the Katie Palmer Project Facebook page, there is a nomination form, and we're just looking for nominations for families that have suffered a hardship or a loss over the past year, and want to bring a smile to their face. And these off-duty firefighters love doing it. And they are truly public servants that are just the best of us, and they're outstanding men and women. And I am so proud that Katie's name is tied to such a positive act of kindness.
That is so awesome. I remember reading a little bit about it, but just hearing it, that's just really cool. I love that.
It's great. Well, it's it was so unexpected. And then when Dustin said that, I mean, it's funny. We'll talk, and it's hard sometimes to talk about this project with him and not get emotional. It's such a beautiful way to remember a beautiful, bright, and kind soul. And I am lucky that I have a friend like him. Just I'm very honored to call him a friend. And then we've still got Katie's Closet at Scott Middle School. So Katie used to bring in snacks for kids in her class that were hungry, and then she would bring articles of clothing in also. And she did this because she cared about her students. And so after she died, they had a room that they remodeled, and they turned it into a boutique type setting, and had clothes for kids that needed it, right? Jackets, coats, sweaters, jeans, socks, undergarments, t-shirts, anything and everything that these kids might need. They remodeled this room, made a boutique out of it, and again, just another beautiful way that she's going to be remembered. And I'm so grateful and thankful to Denison ISD and Scott Middle School for doing that. Just perfect. Absolutely perfect. There's just not two better ways for her name to be remembered.
Are there any calls to action that you would really like to highlight? I know we talked about voting Brett Smith out. Anything at all?
Really, it is, we are just hyper-focused on getting Brett Smith out of office. Hyper-focused on that. And, my gosh, so personally, I had, roughly 125, 150 signs. And I think I've got about 25 left in my car.
Wow.
That I've just been getting calls and messages for people wanting to support another candidate and wanting to vote Brett Smith out.
Yeah.
We were very active the last election cycle when it came to our former Grayson County Judge, Bill Majors. And we had a grassroots campaign that started, and my family and Justice for Katie Palmer were very involved in that as far as, getting out any information. And we're going to do the same thing. Well, we've been doing the same thing. We're going to continue doing the same thing with Brett Smith in this election that's upcoming. So I would urge anybody to, please follow John Kermit Hill for Grayson County District Attorney on Facebook. Please support him. And what we want to do is we want to get Brett Smith out of office. So my family, the other families that we talked about earlier, and any future families aren't treated the way that we have been treated, and we want to bring out more positive change. Those are just two that are, just egregious. Absolutely. It just goes to show you, Brett runs on this platform that he's a workhorse, right? Well, there's no excuse for not meeting with sexual assault victims.
Right.
When it comes to the Ricky Rush case, and there was no reason why Roderick Tad Howard should have ever been let out of jail. And because he was let out of jail, Blake McCoy paid for that mistake by our quote-unquote workhorse of a DA with his life.
Wow. So we have Ricky Rush's victims, we have Blake McCoy, and we have Katie Palmer. And that's at least. Well, I think y'all are amazing. I hope you know that.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, the support that we've received from this community here in Grayson County, and friends, family, and advocates like yourself has been amazing. I know that we wouldn't have gotten as far as we've gotten if it weren't for the support and help from everybody. So I want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you to you as well.
I appreciate that very much.
We would like to thank John Palmer for coming back to chat with us for this update episode. We have plenty of calls to action that have been mentioned today. If you're a resident of Grayson County and are interested in electing John Kermit Hill to supervene the current DA, you may do so by visiting the site we have listed in the show notes. You have a few months to do this, as the primary election won't be until March of 2024. If you'd like to support Justice for Katie Palmer around the holidays, you may do so by visiting the Katie Palmer Project at katiepalmerproject.com.
I just got to say real fast that getting to talk to John was awesome. This is our second interview that we've done with him, and we've also met up and talked to him in person. We even ran into him at a Buc-ee's once. It was pretty cool. But John is just an amazing person, and you can tell that he truly loves his wife and would do anything just to get justice for all of them, and to see his kids be able to move on in peace, remembering his wife and their mother. And he's just an amazing human being, and just embodies the spirit that we all can really take a page from. So thank you once again, John, for joining me for an interview. And with that, John and Katie Palmer and their 2 children, all of them are bees. Bees are strong, resilient, yet vulnerable. We must protect them at all costs. For without bees, we as a human race cannot survive and thrive in life. So be vigilant. For when you mess with the bees,
you get the hive.
Thank you for listening to A Nefarious Nightmare. Music used in the theme was originally by Ghost Stories Incorporated, remixed by Ryan RCX Murphy. Additional background music is provided by Epidemic Sound. A Nefarious Nightmare is scripted, researched, and produced by Courtney Fenner and Amanda Cronin. I'm Lainey Hobbs, and as always, be vigilant, for when you mess with the bees, you get the hive.